What's going on, everybody? We are live. Welcome to another episode of the Knicks Recap podcast. I'm your host, Troy, and joining me today is a very, very special guest. I'm so happy to have him on. My very good friend, and also somebody who has an Emmy Award for Best Sports Anchor. You can catch him as the host of MSG 150. And also, I'm pretty sure you know him from the pre-games and post-games from the Knicks telecast, as he's an MSG Network's analyst. Very good person as well, too, giving us all his great time, Bill Pidto. What's going on, Bill? Thank you so much for joining the show today.
My pleasure, Troy. It's great to see you again and great to be with you and everyone else. We got a brand new season starting next week. It's going to be, I think, very, very exciting.
Absolutely, and I actually can't wait to talk about it because you're talking about, the season, obviously. We saw the preseason. I didn't like too much of that because, obviously, we had a losing record for that. But that's all in the past now. We're headed for the season. And Bill, the season opener, Celtics versus Knicks. I mean, the rivalry that everybody talks about, you got that one and the Heat. I mean, those are synonymous with the New York Knicks. We want to see what Jalen Brunson and the team are going to do against this Boston Celtics team, who I saw the Knicks play, Bill. And honestly, I got to say, I think they look like the best team in the East. What are your thoughts on not only the Celtics game coming up, but also the Celtics team in general?
Well, I think it's very interesting, the moves that they made. You got to give them a lot of credit for changing things up. KP, if he can stay healthy, is a huge piece. Drew Holiday gives them a point guard. Obviously, they don't have Marcus Smart now. But when you go 1 through 6 on the Celtics, Horford, KP, Holiday, Tatum, Brown, and White, you may have arguably the top 6, or at least in the conversation for the top 6 in the entire NBA. The problem is what happens 7, 8, and 9 off the bench. Our buddy Luke Cornett may get some run. So I think the bench may be an issue for them, but that top 6, if they can stay healthy, boy, that's going to be a heck of a team, and definitely a squad to watch for sure.
Absolutely. I think for me, I thought that when healthy, they look like the best team. I think they might be, arguably with Milwaukee, with the superstar duo with Dame and Giannis as well too. But just going back to the season opener against Boston, just your thoughts on that. Do you see the Knicks eking out a victory in that season opener, or do you see Boston closing it out?
I'm not going to worry too much about game one. Overall, here for the Knicks, you have a team that won 47 games last year, won their first playoff series
Right.
since the Melo era. Obi, obviously, is with the Pacers. They acquired Dante DiVincenzo, who, by the way, in the preseason really showed a very valuable skill set, especially on defense. He's got tremendously quick hands. He can really help them on the defensive side of the ball. And on offense, I think he'll be a good add as a three-point shooter potentially. I think the Knicks here, I'm not going to get too caught up on game one, but I think they can take the next step, maybe win close to 50 games if everybody stays healthy. And I think it's a very, very legitimate possibility that they finish third in the East.
Wow. It's great that you say that because I actually said, besides the first two teams we think are going to be Boston and Milwaukee, the East is really open, and whoever gets off to that hot start might take it. The Knicks, with the continuity, the chemistry, they may be able to do that. So I absolutely agree. And speaking about that continuity and chemistry, one of the things I want to talk about, Bill, is the closing lineup. Because a lot of times with Tom Thibodeau coach teams, we look at the starters sometimes, but really the closing lineup is a lot of importance as well too to Tom Thibodeau, and it matters. And for me, I'm just trying to think of players that we could potentially see there. And last season, after the Josh Hart trade, I noticed that Hart closed a lot more games for Tom Thibodeau. Not saying RJ didn't, but there were times where we saw Hart in there. For this upcoming season, with Hart actually starting off the season with the Knicks, do you see him closing lineups more, or how do you see the closing lineup shaking out for the Knicks?
Well, Tibbs always goes with what he thinks is going well that night, who's playing the best. A lot of it is matchup driven. You know, the closing 5 will always include Randall and Brunson, and then it's a roll of the dice.
Right.
Quickly, maybe. Grimes, maybe. RJ, as you mentioned, is not always a lock to be in the closing 5. It could be Hartenstein or Mitchell Robinson up front. So you know you're going to have Brunson. You know you're going to have Randall. And after that, it depends on who's playing well and the matchups and how it shakes up against the opposition.
Absolutely, and the thing is with me, I think that with Tom Thibodeau, he likes obviously the defense that Josh Hart gives. Great two-way player, goes coast to coast for the Knicks very, very well as well, too. One of the best at it on the team. So I can see him closing out some games, but I agree. I think it's going to be based on matchup and who he feels like is going to close the game better, because sometimes we've seen Grimes there, RJ Barrett there, Hart there. So it really depends on what the offense is really giving him. So I definitely agree with that. One of the things that I also wanted to talk to you about as well is the offseason grades for the New York Knicks. You did a great job of mentioning what the Knicks did in regards to adding Dante DiVincenzo. And as you did mention, they traded away Obi Toppin to Indiana for 2 future second-round picks. The Dante contract is 4 years, $50 million, so we assume he's going to be here for quite some time. And then they extended Josh Hart 4 years, $81 million. If you could grade the Knicks offseason, what grade would you give it? And did it meet your expectations?
Well, I think a lot of it is under the premise that they think they still have upside with their young talent. Mm-hmm. They think Grimes can get better. They think that Brunson, as good as he was last year, can get better. They believe that Randall, because of how hard he works, maybe he can even take a step forward. They think Mitchell Robinson is developing. So a lot of the fact, their strategy, I think, was based around the fact that they think they have the pieces that will get better and make them a better team. I have no issue with the fact that they did not take a crazy stab at one of these guys, like a Lillard or whatever the case may be, and gut the roster. It's a young roster. Hart and Randall are each 28. Hart's going to be 29, and they're the oldest guys in the rotation. So This is still a young team. I think the organization thinks it's still a developing roster, and I think they want to take the next step with guys they feel that can improve without having to gut the roster to get a big-time piece.
It's going to be
an all-star or an MVP at this point.
It does seem like that's the direction anyways that we've seen. I mean, a lot of people have spoken about it. Bob Myers, shout out to him, new ESPN NBA analyst, basically spoke about what he did with, spoke about Leon Rose and, Tom Thibodeau and the great job that they're doing and how they've basically built out this roster patiently in their approach. So I think that a lot of people, a lot of teams around the league are actually looking at the Knicks in that light. But one of the things was the New York Knicks and their roster. Because we're looking at the roster, Jalen Brunson, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, so many of the other guys, Isaiah Hartenstein. Who do you think needs to step up the most headed into this next season?
Well, I think a lot of this is roster balance.
Right.
We talked about Bucks, the Celtics being maybe arguably the best top 6 in the league. Who else has a top 9 like the Knicks? After the starting lineup, you got Quick, you got Hartenstein, you got Hart, and you got DiVincenzo. That's a really solid 1 through 9. And I think this is a team that with its depth, that's going to be their strong suit. And look, RJ, hopefully he can become more efficient. I think that's important. Julius Randle has talked about improving his efficiency. I think overall as a team, they were tied for 3rd in points per possession last year, even though they were only 24th in the league in shooting from downtown. So if they can improve the 3-point shooting, I think that would be the single biggest thing that I would look for. Hopefully DiVincenzo can help with that. Hopefully RJ can get better with that. Hopefully Grimes can keep improving with his 3-point shot. I think that is the key element to shoot the ball better from downtown as we look for them to take the next step as a franchise.
Absolutely. With RJ Barrett as well, too, that's the player for me. I think going into year 5, we saw a little bit of a slow start again with RJ Barrett last year. So seeing him get off to a better start this year, we hope FIBA will come into play here, hopefully help get off to a better start, we hope. But I think with what you mentioned with the roster itself, I think the Knicks have a good chance. Like you said, the top 9 that they have, it's hard to look around the league and see in terms of position-wise, like a Julius Randle, for instance, or a Jalen Brunson, for instance, or even Emmanuel quickly off the bench that can give you that same type of impact that other players around the league can. So that's a great point that you mentioned. The last question that I have for you before we get to the fan questions is in regards to just the New York Knicks and what they may do and if they're going to be potential players at the trade deadline. Because I look at Evan Fournier, I look at the contract that he has, I see him playing preseason. I'm glad that he got some run as well there too. But I think we all know when we get into the regular season, Tom Thibodeau is going to cut that rotation more to a 9-man rotation. I don't see Evan Fournier potentially getting time there. Do you potentially think that the Knicks could be players or be active at the trade deadline, given that Fournier may go into the season still remaining a New York Knick?
So Fournier's got this year, and then next year is a team option. So a team could acquire him and then potentially dump him for salary cap purposes. So I think at the trade deadline, he will have some value. One thing we learned last year in December when Coach Thibodeau made the changes with the rotation, he's not going to play 10 guys. It's 9 guys. We've gone over who the top 9 are. Mm-hmm. McBride is there to maybe help. Sims is maybe there to help if there's an injury. McBride, by the way, shot the ball better in the preseason than we've ever seen him as a Knick. And when he plays in the D-League, he always seems to shoot well. So maybe if he gets an opportunity, he can provide more of a spark on offense. But Fournier, I think, could have some value definitely toward the trade deadline for a team that's looking to acquire him and then maybe lose his number off the cap.
Right, and that's exactly what I'm thinking as well too. You hear all the names out there, you hear the towns out there, and you think about potential money that might work, and you think of what Evan's salary is. So it does, in my opinion, it might make sense where that could happen depending on what the Knicks need at that point. And I think it's really going to be based off of the need for the team. I don't think a move is going to be made because they haven't shown that within the last few years with Leon. They're going to make the moves that they feel are the right for the team and not really try to gut the team or hurt the team in the process. It's been one of the most patient, at least constructions of a roster that I've remembered from any regime for the New York Knicks in my past memory. So it's kind of refreshing, I think, to a lot of fans in that regard. But I do see we have some guys in the chat here in a very lively early Friday morning. So I appreciate everybody. And Bill, of course, thank you so much for answering all our questions. The fans definitely appreciate that. I know when I was telling everybody I was going to do the show with you, they were so excited to just hear from you because honestly, I think you're a favorite among a lot of people on social media, Bill.
I got everybody fooled.
Well, you know what? Keep it up because we want to keep being fooled. But guys, this is your time now. If you have questions in the chat, please go ahead and drop them. I'll go ahead and ask some of them to Bill. I'll try to rephrase them, so please try to ask them nicely. So we have my guy Brutus over here. Shout out to Brutus. I think he's mentioning in regards to the trade deadline with Evan Fournier. He's speaking about Detroit, I think, in regards to Boban Bogdanovic, in regards to if the Knicks could potentially target him. And I know he offers a lot of three-point shooting, and the Knicks clearly in the playoffs last year needed a lot more three-point shooting. Do you think that's something that the Knicks would entertain, Bill?
Yeah, again, my point to everybody is Tibbs is playing 9 guys.
Right.
You can get Bogdanovic in here and going to play, then my question for everybody is who is not going to play?
Very good point. I can't even answer that myself because who else would you take minutes away from? You don't want to do it from Grimes. You can't do it from quickly.
Guys, and talk about who's going to lose minutes. You know who the 9 are. Now, heaven forbid there's an injury. This 9 is set. They've committed to Hart. They've signed DiVincenzo. You got Quickly, and you got Hartenstein, and you got the starters. There's no room, barring an injury, for a 10th player.
And there you have it, guys. So if you're wondering if they're going to make one of those trades or one of these other players you're looking at, doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Tom Thibodeau, again, is married to that 9-man rotation for now. If it's not a star player, I agree with Bill. I don't think they're going to get any real time. Any other questions in the chat here today? If not, we're going to end our time with Bill because he's given us so much time already and we want to keep him too long. So we're going to wait a few more minutes because I know it's a little bit of delay with the chat sometimes. But if there's no more questions for Bill, then we're going to have to let him go because he definitely has a lot of things to do. He's a Rangers fan as well. I know he's getting ready for that season. Bill, are you high in your Rangers actually for this season?
Yeah, Rangers actually have started the season. Unfortunately, they lost last night in Nashville, and they're going west here. They have a long West Coast trip coming up, starting tomorrow night at Seattle. So I'll be busy with that. And then we got the Knicks starting. So, look, it's a great time to work at MSG. We got the Knicks and we got the Rangers, and looking forward to seeing how everything develops.
Absolutely agree. One final question from Cody here is regarding just Emmanuel Quickly. What do you think the New York Knicks are going to do with Emmanuel Quickly? Do you think they will extend him before October 23rd, or do you think he might just go into the season as a restricted free agent?
It's going to be very interesting. That's a very interesting question, and that's one thing that I think obviously is going to, it's going to be resolved here by October 23rd at 5 p.m. Eastern time. If they do not extend him, remember, he's restricted next year as a restricted free agent, which means the Knicks can still match another offer that he gets. Obviously, last year, they extended R.J. Barrett right at the deadline. I think they're going to get something done. We'll see. But even if it doesn't get done, you still have the opportunity to match if Quickly gets another offer next summer.
Absolutely agree. There you have it. Great interview again with my very good guest, Bill Pidto. You can catch him every pregame and postgame for the New York Knicks telecast. Please don't miss him. MSG 150, still one of my favorites. Inspiration always, Bill. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Troy. Great to be with you and great to be with everyone. And let's go Knicks.